Hello, everybody. We are in the Crimson Dungeons talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola. And we're in the live streams right now, and I have all my wonderful co-chatters, and we've been just talking about the quality of Dracula, or lack thereof, the 90s movie by Francis Ford Coppola. So Letty just asked me, Daco, who would you have cast for, instead of Keanu Reeves, Gary Oldman, and Winona Ryder? I mentioned before that I didn't feel much chemistry between Winona Ryder and Gary Oldman. It just doesn't flow. I don't feel like they're really in love. And yet, Letty, it's an interesting question because I still, Gary, definitely, I would have kept Gary as Dracula, but Winona Ryder, I think the problem with Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves is that they tried to make them speak with a British accent, and that really did not work in their favor, in the actor's favor. Now, Keanu Reeves is just so beautiful, handsome, mesmerizing, still today, but back then, I mean, there's a certain sadness and quality to his looks, and I think he just, in the 80s, he shot My Own Private Idaho with Gus Van Sant, right? With Phoenix, which is where I fell in love with Keanu Reeves. I mean, that My Own Private Idaho is the movie where it's love for me, really. Or did he shoot it after Dracula? But, So the Francis Ford Coppola 90s Dracula, Keanu Reeves is just, there's something about him. I think he was cast well. And I know a lot of people are not happy with him in that movie, that he's just like too stiff, doesn't convey emotions. But I think the stiffness is called for that part. And yes, it's true. It's better when he doesn't talk. But he's just so beautiful, or handsome, you should say, for a guy. But I mean, he's so gender fluid in a way as well. He's just he's gorgeous. So, but there's a torment in the way he looks, right? So I think he conveys the most when he doesn't speak in that movie. Him just sitting and being there creates a whole mood and a whole vibe. But there was I was watching somebody reviewing the movie, and they said something about, they invested so much money in the special effects, and boy, some of those effects were really amazing. And I want to rewatch the movie over and over again just because of the special effects, not because of the plot line or because of the acting. Even though Anthony Hopkins and Gary Oldman were both amazing, impeccable. There's hands down, nothing bad to say about it. And the lady who acted Lucy, she was incredible too, I gotta say. Forgot her name. But I kind of want to rewatch it over and over again just for the effects. Now, if I were to shoot a Dracula movie, like Bram Stoker's Dracula, not just some vampire story like Twilight, like Dracula, the book, I would not have gone so pop on it. They went for Universal Monsters type of vibe in some instances, with the camera shots and the huge sets and the falling apart buildings. As beautiful as it is to see, it's also so artificial to a point where the artificiality becomes an intricate part of the plot line. And I guess the artificiality of Dracula being somebody who denies the power of God, and kind of at the beginning of the movie, rages against him, and then kind of is cursed because he dares challenge God in a way. So there's that artificiality of his life. He's dead but undead, so he's a vampire, so it's an artificial life. So I kind of get that the aesthetic of the movie is pushed to an artificial level. But I would honestly, maybe that's because we were in the 90s when Dracula was shot, when Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula was shot. But if I were to shoot Dracula today, I would go for the hyper real, and I wouldn't go for the lipstick, the pale face, the wig, the hair, the whole Nosferatu thing. Here I have You know, here we have like a Bela Lugosi type of mask that I have, you know, a latex mask of Dracula. This is kind of an old school Dracula that we know, but I would go for, I gotta say, I am a fan of the first Twilight movie. I'm a sucker for it. I just think the way that they conveyed that love just worked. It's a teeny movie, but it's perfection. That type of flavor, I would add that to Bram Stoker's Dracula. Now, I'm not saying I'll do it with teenies and stuff. No, I would still convey death and the macabre and the decay and the fact that you're an undead creature now, but you still never forgot, like, you're tortured, you're cursed, because for centuries and centuries, the only love of your life you've lost because, well, in the movie at least, the Turks, to avenge or to have revenge against Vlad, he won the war or the battle with them, but then they sent a letter to Mina to tell her that Vlad died in the battle. So she thinks her love died. So she commits suicide because she believes the letter that was sent to her by the Turks saying that her lover died in war, when in fact he didn't. So when he comes back home, triumphant, he sees her dead because she thought he was killed and she didn't want to live without him. So she committed that sacrifice. Well, it's not a sacrifice. She just didn't want to live. She actually wrote, I hope that by killing myself, I can finally be reunited with you because you are dead too. So it's this ultimate sacrifice for love gesture, which kind of breaks him. And that's when he goes against God and is so angry that God let that happen. And then he becomes cursed and he becomes Dracula. Now, the book is much different. That's not how it happens in the book. But anyway, that's how it happens in Francis Ford Coppola's movie. So anyway, you're cursed for centuries. You can't die anymore. Well, technically, you could kill yourself because there are ways to kill Dracula. So in a way, he's also egotistical because he doesn't want to kill himself, because if he wanted to, he could. He has his little banshees, these little vampire chicks that he created, all of those, you know, creatures of the night. He could just command them to kill him. Maybe they can't kill him by some underworld law, but stake through the heart, wooden stake through the heart, chopping head off. I mean, there's ways to kill Dracula. Dracula does die at the end of the movie. But still, you're looking for that love, and she's kind of reincarnated after centuries and centuries. And we don't, in the movie, I don't feel it. I don't feel that chemistry between them. Also, Gary Oldman looks not just older when he's the old Dracula at the beginning of the movie, but even when he's his younger self in the 90s. I mean, not in the 90s, in the 1800s. I mean, in London, when he has the curly long hair and the chic 90s glasses that look very, you know, steampunk. Even then, he looks much older than her. So there's that age discrepancy, which, you know, whatever. You love whatever age you want to love, if you're of age, obviously. But it didn't help the romance for me, especially because Keanu Reeves is so handsome, and Keanu Reeves is supposed to marry Winona Ryder in the movie. And they're both, I mean, Winona Ryder is as beautiful as any creature can get. I mean, Winona Ryder is just divine, still today, divine. So she's really beautiful. Keanu Reeves is super handsome. Sure, his character, he's lacking in character. Gary Oldman has the character. But looks-wise, once you've seen Winona with Keanu Reeves together, you're like, yeah, that chemistry works much better. And then you don't believe anymore when Gary Oldman kicks in, comes to London, and the first time he sees Mina and he makes her see him, you can't believe it. You can't believe it because you've already seen her with Keanu Reeves. That was more, I'm not saying that was the best chemistry, but it was more chemistry than what we have with Gary Oldman. So because that chemistry was lacking, I think they should have dedicated more time to giving us alternative possibilities for us to feel their love story developing. They tried, but even when they tried, it still felt like they were still trying more to deliver special effects properly rather than developing our emotion for their love story. You know what I mean? And then Anthony Hopkins comes in and you're like, oh my gosh, Hannibal the Cannibal. You know, he has his little scar. He's Van Helsing. He's there. He going for it, you know. But he delivers and Gary Oldman delivers. All the others are kind of these puppets in between this whirlwind of these two major actors and a major director, because Francis Ford Coppola is up there. And you get lost between these cardinal points of Anthony Hopkins and Gary Oldman, the special effects, which are constantly artificial to a point where it's very romantic and beautiful to watch, but it kills off the emotion, because it's like you're constantly watching paintings, photos, abstract art. You're watching the depiction of crimson red in all its hues and shades, hence why we are with this red filter right now as well, for a reason, obviously. But you keep going through it, and the movie's over, and you want to rewatch it again just to see the beauty of the pictures, but the sacrifice to pay was the story. And yes, some of the costumes were very related to the 90s. They could have worked a bit harder to make them more timeless. I mean, Gary Oldman's costume, Vlad's costume when he went to war, that whole costume that resembles stripped, just muscle texture, like stripped of all its skin. That's something I don't know who did the costumes, actually. I should have checked. It's something Jean-Paul Gaultier would have made back then. And in fact, what do we have in the 90s also? Gary Oldman in Luc Besson's The Fifth Element, who was dressing him, who was dressing everybody in that. It was a French production because Luc Besson is a French filmmaker, but Jean-Paul Gaultier did the costumes for The Fifth Element. Gary Oldman was kind of the bad guy in The Fifth Element. We're supposed to feel empathy for Dracula in Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. Yeah, Gary Oldman is good at conveying that, but I don't feel the love between him and Mina. What do you guys say in the chats? Keanu would have been amazing in the silent movie era, says Jack Dean. Oh, Keanu Reeves in the silent movie era? Divine. Yes, you said it. I got goosebumps. I totally agree with you. Debbie says, shut up and be pretty? LOL. Yes, handsome, pretty, but also he has pain. He conveys pain through stillness. He conveys depth through stillness. There is a pain in his beauty, which is just so beautiful to look at. So we're not just objectifying him, but in a way, yeah. Edu says the costumes were amazing. VJ says my favorite Dracula film with Luke Evans. Dracula Untold, I think, says VJ loves. I mean, I have a lot of really favorites when it comes to Dracula movies, but I love Shadow of a Vampire with Willem Dafoe as Nosferatu. It's almost like a reality documentary about the shooting of the movie Nosferatu, and they were shooting, allegedly, right? They were shooting with a real Nosferatu, and he was super scared because he didn't know. I love that movie so much. So Shadow of a Vampire with Willem Dafoe is one of my favorite, kind of on the topic of Nosferatu / vampires, but veering away from Bram Stoker's Dracula. Jack says, well, there's a question of whether the human soul leaves the body when the vampire is created. Right. Except in the movie, they say it leaves the soul, Jack. But when Mina plummeted to her death, she wasn't a vampire. She committed suicide, normal human, and that done. Soul left the body, reincarnated centuries later in the new Mina in London. Katie says, I could see Anya Taylor-Joy as Mina. I love Winona. Winona Ryder, says Katie F. Just says, I'm going to give Vampire Gay Bear realness on Sunday. Oh, yes, Queen, give us some Vampire Gay Bear realness. We're loving that. Robert wants to be a teddy bear. Elko Ishioka was the costume designer, says Jack. Oh, thank you. No, Aiko Ishioka. Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, my gosh. By the way, okay, this is also something that nobody or almost nobody talks about when they talk about Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. Annie Lennox. Now, I would love to play the song. Now, obviously, we can't for copyright reasons, but her song for the movie, and it doesn't play in the movie, which is a pity, but it plays in the end credits at the end of the movie. I actually posted it just yesterday. When I posted the poster, oh, I wish I uploaded the poster to my Halloween bash so I could kind of blend it in here. But anyway, hold on. Let me see if I can find Annie Lennox. I'm not going to play it, though. I just want to see the exact title. So anyway, I played that song on my Insta story. I'm looking for it, bugging for it. Ah, there she is. Love Song for a Vampire. Now, let me tell you something. I haven't really looked into did Francis Ford Coppola direct that music video? I don't think he did. I'm reading here. Album is from the Ballads, Annie Lennox, licensed to orchestra music, blah, 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 blah. No. Okay, it doesn't say. I'm looking on Annie Lennox's own YouTube channel, and I'm looking in her own credits of the song right now. She didn't post, or whoever for her did not post who the director of the video clip was. Maybe somebody can Google and let me know. By the way, let me cue in me as a vampire. Hit it. All right, so this is my poster. For the Halloween bash. Be sure to tune in this Sunday, October 31st, for the Halloween bash on my main YouTube channel. Everybody's invited. Dress up, put makeup on, and you don't have to dress up if you want to. Just call in. We're going to have cameras. I mean, you're going to be on screen with me, and we're going to be chatting, talking. I will be in makeup. I have already a costume. So anyway, so as I was promoting this poster, and the event to happen this Sunday, I played a little snippet, a 15-second snippet from Love Song for a Vampire. Now, this video, Annie Lennox in Love Song for a Vampire, that's timeless. You see, this is when sorry, I know a lot of y'all's really love Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. Hold on, let me move to the side. We can just leave this on while I'm talking for a second here. I know a lot of y'all really love Bram Stoker's Dracula, right? But Annie Lennox, her video, that song, that mood. So Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula is very segregated to the 80s style-wise. Even though he tried to make it go back into the 20s, go back to the Universal era of monsters. It was a tribute to cinema. He worked with a lot of cinematographic effects, old school effects. Yeah, all good and great. But Annie Lennox's video is more timeless than the Dracula movie. The way that her makeup, her costume, the added prosthetics that they did for her hands to make them like white as if she's like dying at the corner, like the extremities of her body are drying out and turning white. The expressions of her face, Annie Lennox is anyway very vampiric in her way. They made her even more pale, and she has those shadows under her cheeks, and she moved so very almost like a geisha in a way, but she moved just little movements, very slow, nothing. There was no 20s silent movie era moments like we're used to, like this, this kind of nosferatu thing does that, or like, all of that was not happening. She was more about this, and the slow movement of it, and the song is just so ethereal. So the song actually delivered and conveyed to me the concept of this eternal love of this vampire that never reaches really who he strives and longs for centuries and centuries. That song, how long is it? How long is this song? Hold on. Couple of minutes, basically. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So the video clip is 4 minutes and 30 seconds. In 4 minutes and 30 seconds, she conveys what the entire movie that is over 2 hours long couldn't convey as well as a 4-minute song. Now, we know that music is very powerful. Music is more strong than visuals in many cases. We have this great example of 2001 Space Odyssey, Also sprach Zarathustra, to use that music in a science fiction movie like that, or The Blue Danube. Only Stanley Kubrick could get away with it, because that music is so overpowering. You could show no matter what crappy image and the music will take charge. Kubrick, being the genius that he was, may he rest in peace, he elevated the visuals to the music. Very rare, almost unachievable. And this is what I'm telling you. Annie Lennox with Love Song for a Vampire. Oh, that's where it's at. That's where it's at. And that song, and it was not used in the movie. And I wonder why. I think it wasn't used in the movie because it would be overbearing. It would have stolen the show. This song and Annie Lennox would have stolen the show. Annie Lennox should have been in the movie. They should have given her a speaking part. I mean, I guess she didn't want to act, or I don't know, but whatever. But she is the vampire that I wanted to see in Dracula. That song, Jack Dean says, that song and that music video, Jack, are incredible, incredible. Letty says, I would have loved to see Eva Green as Mina in that movie. Although her presence would have been too strong for Canyu's character, Annie Lennox's song is to die for. Love Song for a Vampire, MV was directed by British director Sophie Muller. So Sophie Muller directed the Annie Lennox video. Thank you for that information, Jack. Letty says, I watched that movie on VHS. I rented from Blockbuster. I would stop replay to write down the lyrics of that song. Made me cry for hours. And now you could watch it on YouTube, on Annie Lennox's own YouTube channel. And just her makeup and her dress, the costume, I'm looking at it now as it's happened. And the way she moves her eye, she knows how to act in front of the camera. She knows how to move. Annie Lennox is incredible, incredible. And this song, actually, thanks to this song, the movie ages a bit less. Unfortunately, the song is played only at the end of the movie. And as I said, because they would have stolen the show, I feel, if they played the song during the movie. Fantastic poster, says Antonella. Thank you so much. Frank Langella was one of my favorites. Laurence Olivier loved it. Jack says, Sophie Muller has directed a huge amount of music videos, including Eurythmics. Well, obviously, I mean, she must have if Annie Lennox wanted to work with her. PJ Harvey 2, Bjork, etc. Wow. That's really cool. I mean, definitely... this lady Sophie Muller has a feeling for drama, but conveying it in such an elegant way. So, yes, the aesthetics are 90s in the video clip, in the music clip, but Annie Lennox as a vampire, there's nothing like it. So they should have cast her somehow. Maybe Annie Lennox was already too old to be Lucy, or to be Mina, because I guess they wanted Mina to be as innocent as possible to contrast the decay of the lack of the soul of Dracula. But there's ways in which, for example, what is very poetic to me is what Netflix is doing with Castlevania. The Dracula, even though in a cartoon anime form, the way that Dracula is portrayed, or the opposite, again, that duality coming in here. Alucard, which is the opposite. Dracula spelled backwards is Alucard. So we got Alucard / Dracula, Dracula's son, who is a son of a mortal woman and an immortal being, Dracula. How he deals with existence on a planet that is ravaged by hate, blood spilling, curses, the church taking power where it shouldn't, and then vampires, and then other beasts battling each other. It's incredible. Like, there are ways of conveying also love and pain for not having love. which are timeless, very timeless. I have the feeling that Francis Ford Coppola is a dude, not a very emotional dude. You know, he's the Godfather type of guy, okay? He's gonna make a Godfather movie. But he's not gonna... You give him a topic like Dracula, and he's gonna go for the technical aspect of making it like a cool dude movie. And Dracula is about love. So he's gonna have to touch base on the love, but he'll never really dive into it because, you know, he's a dude. It's not really... The whole movie feels to me as if Gary Oldman is trying to convey emotions, but they're kind of directing him to dial it back in a way. And Winona Ryder was so concerned for nailing her accent that she kind of lost herself in the emotion. The emotions were like, it just felt they were over-directed. Now, it is also said that Winona Ryder actually brought the script for Dracula to Francis Ford Coppola. So she had her paws in it. She decided what she wanted to do, probably. So in a way, she got what she wanted, right? So we can't just say she was a victim of it. I don't think she was. I think she was happy with how it turned out for her. I personally do not know who I would have back in the 90s. Who would I have cast instead of them? I think, despite it all, Keanu Reeves was still great. Even though but then again, they invested so much money in makeup and special effects, but they kept, his hair was a mess because he was supposed to show aging and being parasitically abused by the vampire. So his hair is supposed to turn white, gray, and then white. It looked cheaply done. It didn't really change to gray. Like they had a budget. They could have done his hair better. But also in one scene, his hair was completely white, and then 2 scenes later, his hair is completely normal again. And I was like, oh my gosh, how could they make such a mistake? But they did. But mistakes like that do happen. So I think Keanu Reeves was good in his role, despite all the, you know. Maybe they should have just avoided trying to make them speak with a British accent, because they really did not nail those accents at all. They should have just let them speak in, you know, American English and call it a day. And just call it a day, honestly. Because just... That's just my opinion. But anyway, having said all that, the nostalgic aesthetic of that movie makes you want to watch it over and over again. Not so much the plot line. It's more the attention to detail of the sets. But I've also heard in some other interview or reporting about this movie that Francis Ford Coppola wanted it to be more real, but that the film studios was like, no, it has to be huge set designs. It has to look artificial. It has to look like a 20s Universal Studios monster movie, which it did, but on an exponentially higher budget. So I wonder how it would have turned out if Francis Ford Coppola was allowed to really give it that naturalistic touch with even less emotions. I think it would have worked in its favor, because the aesthetics were so over the top emotional. They were so full of affect, not effect, but the effect, you know, that Baroque, that whole emphasis, you know, the costumes, the set design, everything was so over the top that Francis Ford Coppola had no choice. You had to deliver that same thing with the emotions, but there he didn't do. Gary tried as much as he could, but the overall, it lacked. The emotions were not as high as the aesthetics of the movie. And that's where the unbalance starts happening for me. Jack says absolutely, or to me or to somebody else. Oh no, Julian Sands, but maybe he was too old. But oh wait, okay, sorry, you're talking about something else. Sophie Muller has directed a huge amount of other music videos. Oh, Letty says Sophie Muller should have been the director of the movie, in my humble opinion. That's a good idea. Sophie has only done 2 full-length films, 300 music videos. I don't know if she could do a full film, says Jack. They should have hired British actors maybe to do the roles of Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves, says Jack. Um, Pixohexus says to Jack, maybe Julian Sands, but maybe he was too old by then. Jack says, absolutely. Lily Bonfi says, Tom Watts or Waits was great. Debbie says, oh, Julian Sands, Warlock. Jack says, your hands are giving me Gloria Swanson. Oh, this moves. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Yeah. Yeah. Very much Sunset Boulevard, which is also a huge classic. And in fact, David Lynch, one of his favorite movies together with The Wizard of Oz. I'm talking about David Lynch in particular because as Dracula came out in the early 90s, Twin Peaks came out in the early 90s, and Francis Ford Coppola being the art director that is also David Lynch, they also look from each other, who does what. And there are similarities between 90s Twin Peaks and Dracula. Just in the flavor of things, I want to say, in the warmness of the cameras used and the film used. Now I'm going to touch base on the last part of my analysis of Dracula, and then we can call it a day. By the way, let me blend out the poster. Anyway, last time I'm going to say it. Join this Sunday, October 31st. Everyone's invited. Let's have fun. Let's have fun in the Fashion Bunker, everybody. We're going to be all on camera. You're all going to be here popping on my sides, and we're all going to be talking in costume or getting ready to, a Halloween party. My biggest issue with this movie is its popularity. And by that, I don't mean just because everybody loves to watch it. No, by that I mean because it has become the most famous memed movie of all times. Maybe not of all times, but of all horror times. And by that I mean The Simpsons. Now, The Simpsons also make a lot of fun and spoofs of Twin Peaks. And there are scenes of Lisa in the Red Room, we all know. But you cannot help but when you rewatch Dracula now, I cannot help but always see Mr. Burns as Gary Oldman walking around with his, little, the two little tits on his head. Walking around. And so I had to laugh yesterday when I rewatched Dracula because the first half of the movie is definitely better than the second half. I mean, the first third of the movie. The first and second act. Because all of the scenes with Gary Oldman / Dracula in his castle with the tits on his head and the red robe, that's just beautiful. That is worth rewatching over and over and over again. But the problem is The Simpsons have appropriated it. Talk about cultural appropriation. This is film appropriation, okay? I know The Simpsons did a spoof, but it's such a powerful spoof that every time I see that scene with Gary Oldman, I cannot help but see Mr. Burns as Gary Oldman walking through his Simpson castle, and it's just a joke. So it makes you laugh because it's already, the movie is like a cartoon. It's also borderline comical. Maybe it was scary for the 90s, but when you watch Dracula today, it's not scary. It's oversaturated with mannerism and aesthetics that you can't relate emotionally to it. And again, this is because I think Francis Ford Coppola, that's how he deals or not deals with emotions. But then you have that added layer of Simpsons or other cartoons or other billion memes out there that have kind of homaged the Gary Oldman Dracula, so that now when you actually watch the original Gary Oldman as Dracula, you cannot help but in your mind overblend on top of him all of these memes and all of these other spoofs. So it was hard for me yesterday rewatching it to detach myself from The Simpsons. You know what I mean, you guys? Oh my God, I had completely forgotten about The Simpsons parody sister. How can you forget about it, Jack? It's like the most Barbara says, yes, you're right. Then it should have been Johnny Depp. Sorry, getting super sleepy, getting late here. Johnny Depp, actually, I also heard like it was supposed to be Johnny Depp, but the film studio said, no, we need somebody even more handsome than Johnny Depp. And I'm like, more handsome than Johnny Depp? In the 90s? What planet are we on? This is when straight people decide which handsome men are to get apart. My humble opinion. I know there's a bunch of gays in Hollywood, but I'm like, Johnny, yes, Johnny Depp could have done it, hands down, super easy. Um, Barbara says, yes, you're right. No, Johnny Depp for sure. Johnny Depp. I would have loved to have seen him. I would have loved to have seen Johnny Depp. Both are great though. I gotta say, huh? So one of my socioanalysis professors always used The Simpsons as a metaphor, says Jack. Huh. From which because Simpsons was like 30. How many seasons? 34 seasons of The Simpsons by now. You know what professors in universities use and high schools use a lot when they talk about film history and socioanalytical aspects of film in society? They usually use Pretty Woman. Pretty Woman is one of the most used examples of movies for some sort of social studies. So I'm interested to see how he used The Simpsons and which episode of The Simpsons did he use, or just in general The Simpsons, in his speeches. Um, Yeah, Jack says straight casting directors. Well, the casting director doesn't choose who's going to ultimately act in the movie. The casting director facilitates casting for directors, producers, executive producers, all the execs in the film industry. But ultimately, it's who gives the money who decides. That's so. So the casting director, the casting couch, is not always in the casting director's office, but the casting couch can also be in the executive producer's office. Catch my drift? Mr. Weinstein, hi. But so, and co. So, yes, Pixel Hex's Pretty Woman is often utilized in socioanalytical aspects of film and society. Jack says, gosh, I can't remember which specific episodes he would include clips at the end of the lectures. Oh, of The Simpsons? That is funny. Well, anyway, you guys, this was kind of my analysis broken down in thought processi of Bram Stoker / Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. Final verdict, taken in its cinematographically aesthetical cinematography aspects and effects, beautiful, worth rewatching. And here's the twist. You can turn the sound off because a lot of the text and the acting isn't top notch from the younger actors. But if you just watch it as a painting, if you just play it on a wall in a gallery and you just watch it as a moving painting, then Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula really delivers. And you can just have it in rotation, hanging on a wall, like you would have a photo or a painting hanging on a wall. You could have, now in the 90s, there were no flat screen TVs. You could have projectors, but now you could literally install certain size of a flat screen, flat TV thing on your wall and just have the digital data movie on it and play that in loop as a painting in your house. Then Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula is a masterpiece. The Stendhal syndrome, you get that with Dracula. You fall into that painting. It's like a dream. It's like a vision. Just don't let them talk. Just watch it flat on a wall as a painting, and then you're good to go. I think that's the best way to enjoy, in today's day and age, the 90s movie, Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you will like this conversation. If you have thumb up this video, let me know your thoughts about Francis Ford Coppola in the comment section down below. This was Totally Dacob with Dracula and about Dracula. Well, this is Bela Lugosi more than anything else. But until next time, sweet, spookily vampiric dreams to y'all. Bye.